conversations like this or about these issues to know how to stay safe and also know how to protect ourselves and also how to even treat some of these things when we get them. So this morning we are very honored, of course, to have in the studio with us. He's not a stranger to you at home who is watching us this morning. He's our person. He's in the person of Dr. Kelvin Owusu, who is a wellness consultant at the Violet Medical Center. Doc, good morning.
Good morning. How are
Merry
you
Christmas.
doing?
I'm well.
Same
Yourself?
to you. Same to you. So I have a code. So when they mentioned the topic, I was like, okay, let me just come in and share what I have, from a personal experience. One of the things about being a doctor is that, and why we must charge a lot of consultation fee, because when you come with a problem, it's like we embrace the problem and take it as our own. You see, so it's a hazard of the trade, but how for do?
Of course, but Doc, let's start off the conversation by maybe understanding the kind of times we are in. First of all, it's Christmas. The Christmas comes with a certain air. Sometimes when we enter December, people are like, oh, I can feel Christmas. I can smell Christmas. Yeah. What times are we in?
Well, as you said, we are in the Harmattan season, and back in school, primary school, they told us about the wind, the changes in the wind. We have the northeast trade winds coming from the Sahara Desert and coming with a lot of dust. So that's where we find ourselves now, where there's a lot of dust in the air. That's the smell of Christmas for us. So it's not exactly unusual per se. Right. It's just that this particular year is interesting because of two things. One, we had an election where a very, very wide gap. So that's one. Then the second unusual thing is cholera. Usually we would have had cholera when there was rain. Now there's no rain and we are dealing with cholera. People have died. People are still dying. Yes. It's still a big deal, even as we've entered the Christmas season. I don't think we've had a cholera outbreak in this time in a long time. So it makes it very unusual. You have to go for parties and various events and there's cholera, so you have to be careful. So that makes this particular Christmas season very different from previous Christmas seasons.
Right. Right. Speaking of which, lots of us I have experienced some cold. I lost my voice, and I noticed one thing, that when it's dry season, for instance, I sometimes even get bleeding nose. I bleed through my left nose. The first time I experienced it was very scary for me. So I called a doctor friend and I'm like, I'm bleeding through my nose. I don't have a cut. Am I sick? What's going on? So he said, oh no, it's just the weather, the dryness. So you're okay, but just stay hydrated and all of that. First off, how should we deal with this? What can I do to stay away from catching a cold in this dry season? Is it even possible?
So, it's not impossible, but it's going to be very challenging because most of these cold viruses are airborne, or droplets infection. So if you engage with somebody who already has a cold, the person touches a table or the person is talking, the droplets will settle within a certain distance around the person. So if you are close in that space, you're going to get it. People who have children, little children, cannot really avoid it because the children, they sort of share the cold in class, they bring it home and then share it at home as well. So it's very difficult to prevent it. However, we try to improve the immune system so that it can deal with it better. For the children, there's a lot of the times parents get very, very concerned or very alarmed when their child keeps getting the cold or various infections. But it is actually a good thing in a way because it helps the children to develop resistance.
Right.
So if you were to keep your child away from all other children, that child would probably not develop antibodies against some of these common infections. And so when they do eventually get exposure, the impact is quite devastating. So it's challenging, it's difficult, but it's a good thing. They need to interact with other children and build the resistance that the body needs. And then on our side or at home, we try to improve their immune system by giving them a lot of fruits. You see, because viruses in general, we don't have medication to cure viruses. It's not like malaria that you take anti-malaria 3 days and you are good to go. When it comes to viruses, they will run their course and it's dependent on the status of your immune system. And one of the key things to boost your immunity are the minerals and vitamins. So fruits and vegetables are very, very, very important. But when you situate this in the context of cholera, then we need to be even more careful because you see, fruits and vegetables are mostly eating in their raw state. So now, if you don't wash them well, then the risk of getting infected with cholera is also high. So in as much as we want you to give the children and yourself fresh fruits and vegetables, we need to be mindful, make sure it's cleaned well, either with vinegar or brine, that is salt water, so that we can make sure that we've cleansed it as much as possible. Then the dryness in the air is also going to irritate your skin, your nose, your lips. You know, so you might develop some cracks on your lips, especially if you keep licking the lips. You know, so that's why it's better to use a balm, you know, or lip gloss, or any of the other. Yes, so a balm to moisturize the lips and the skin as well, to minimize the impact of the dryness. It's because as the wind blows, moisture evaporates from the skin. And because the air itself is already dry, you know, a lot more moisture is evaporating. So that's why your skin is also going to be drier than usual. So you need to, you know, especially the guys who just bath and then they don't put on any oil, they don't put any oil on their skin. This is not the time to do that. You need to put some oil on your skin, some moisturizer, just to lock in some moisture and prevent your skin from cracking. Then the nose is also a big deal. Again, the same thing, because the air is dry, you are inhaling dry air, it's going to dry up the nostrils, and so the slightest irritation, you might just be trying to, you know, scratch the nose, so you wiggle it a little bit, and because the mucus or the mucosa, I mean that's the technical name, the skin inside the nose is a bit dry, it breaks easily, and then you notice the bleeding. So as much as possible, try and avoid aggressive, you know, wiggling of the nose, or don't pick your nose. This is not the time to be picking your nose. I mean, it's a bad habit in general, but especially in the Harmattan, don't pick your nose. Should I say the mucus that cakes in the nose is actually a defense mechanism, and so because more dust is going into the nose, the mucus is trapping more dust. So that's why there's a higher, should I say, a higher propensity to actually pick your nose during the dry season. If you don't hold yourself, you end up scratching the nose, the mucosa, and then that could result in bleeding. And some of the bleeding can be quite disastrous, so we don't want to even get it started. However, should you notice some bleeding, the best thing to do is to pinch the nose, you know, and hold it for a couple of minutes, and the bleeding would usually stop. If the bleeding does not stop, they need to report to the hospital for appropriate interventions to be started, you know. So and then of course, because of the dust in the air, it's actually advisable that you wear face mask, you know. So the face mask in this case is not just to prevent the spread of infection, it's also to protect your airway from dust, a lot of dust coming in. So if you live in a dusty area, there's already a lot of dust in the air. If you already live in a dusty area, your risk of inhaling dust is even higher at this point. So wearing of nose mask is advised at this point.
Very well said. Doc, now let's talk about diet and how to stay hydrated. I think it's a very important thing during these times. What foods can we eat? Are there even any foods that we can eat to boost our immunity, or what can we do to stay hydrated throughout this Harmattan period?
Well, I mean, water, you can't go wrong with water, you know, so you should be drinking as much water as you can. I mean, at least 3 liters of water. But if you work outdoors, you probably need a lot more water, because you are being exposed to the sun more than the rest of us who are more indoors. So you need to be drinking more water, you know. But the interesting thing is that during the Harmattan, you don't get thirsty, so a lot of people are actually drinking less, but we need to be conscious and try and drink as much water, as much water. So one of the tricks is actually to carry a bottle, you know, to work or to wherever you're going, so that it prompts you to actually drink the water in there. So you tell yourself that by the end of the day, I need to finish this bottle, this water bottle, empty it. So as you go through the day, you take sips and move on with your life. If you don't want to drink plain water, I mean, juice is fine, provided it's fresh squeezed juice. You know, because sometimes
I'm making a face because I know somebody who could actually not drink water. He will sub juice, beer, any form of liquid for water.
So beer is not a substitute for water, and this is why. Beer or alcohol is a diuretic. So alcohol will actually make you lose water. You know, so when you drink alcohol, you tend to urinate more. So if you substitute alcohol for water, it's not going to achieve the same results, you know, so you end up actually becoming dehydrated. So alcohol is a big no-no, but juice is fine, you know. there's water in everything, pretty much. You know, there's water in fruits, there's water in vegetables. You know, look at cucumber, you can actually see the water dripping from cucumber. So all those are good. There's coconut, you know, watermelon. You know, so there's water in everything that we take in. And so if you are not drinking water itself, but you are doing all these other things, you know, smoothies, juice, any of the purees, they all contain water.
Okay.
But you just need to be conscious that you are drinking enough, you know, because that's the thing. Because if you don't start drinking, sometimes you're probably going through the day, you start having headache. You know, it's not because you actually have you're an infection. It's just probably because you are dehydrated, and that's one of the ways the body is telling you that, you know, get me some water. You know, some people will tell you that when I have a headache and I drink water, then I'm fine. Well, yes, it's because you haven't been drinking enough water. So that's your body telling you that drink water. You know, so not all headache means malaria or infection. It could just be water you are not drinking enough of. You know, then when it comes to it comes to diet in general, so this is the time to have a balanced diet. You know, because you need your immune system to be optimum, and it thrives on a balanced diet. You know, so I mentioned earlier that fruits and vegetables are very important because most of our diet we don't incorporate a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. You know, so we go in and eat our banku and okra,
which with hot pepper,
which is usually all cooked. Yes. And you see, the thing about the vegetables is that when you apply heat, they tend to lose some amount of their nutrition or nutritional value. You know, so eating them fresh is better or is best. You know, so if even you're going to apply heat, you know, that's why you don't necessarily have to cook it or boil it. Sometimes it's just the steaming, just to soften it up a little bit. You know, so too much cooking is not good. I mean, but that's a whole cultural conversation that we really need to have, because indeed our food are traditionally overcooked.
Yes.
You know, and so it's a problem. You know, now the children, we need to also be mindful of what we are feeding our children, because in the festive season, and I had my own sit down with my squad a few days ago. You know, because it's like, what do we want to do for Christmas? Oh, we want to go here and have some fast food. We want to go here and eat some ice cream. We want to go here and, you know, so we need to be mindful, because all these fast foods, ice cream, all those things are calorie rich. And unfortunately, a lot of our children are not as active. You know, when we were growing up, Christmas time, we were putting up hats and running around and chasing chicken.
Yes.
I don't know about the last time anybody chased chicken, because before we can enjoy the chicken for the Christmas rice, you have to catch the chicken.
Yes.
And all that was activity that we're doing. Now all those things are missing. They are being replaced by the phone and the TV. You know, so now these children go and have these heavy calorie rich meals, and they come and sit down. So we are developing a lot of childhood obesity, you know, and childhood obesity is resulting in early development of hypertension and diabetes in our children and our young adults. You see, so we need to be mindful of all these things. So yes, Christmas time is a time for celebration, a time for family, but it's also a time for reflection, you know. And as you are reflecting, as you are projecting to the new year, we need to add health to our discussion so that we can prepare for a better 2025. Because without health, everything else is irrelevant, to be honest. All the goals will not be achieved if you are not healthy. So we must factor in our health.
Of course. Now, Doc, for someone or for people who have pre-existing conditions like asthma, which we all know that this dry season is not very friendly to them, or some sort of allergies, or even children, how do they deal, or how do they stay safe during these times?
So yes, I mean, those with allergies, especially the allergies relating to the respiratory system, during the Harmattan, they deal with a lot of episodes, you know, and it's because the dust and other things are, you know, so there's a lot of dust in the air. There are a lot of plant material also in the air, because the trees are drying out and they are falling down. So you have pieces of leaves pulling all over the place. So yes, there's an upsurge in allergies in these times. So now, if you are already aware that you have, say, asthma, this is the time to make sure that you have your inhalers at hand, so that you don't wait for the attack before you are running around looking for it. So make sure that your inhaler has not expired and is accessible, either in your bag or somewhere that you know how to reach it. And if it's a child, now thankfully the children are on vacation, but if your child happens to be in school, this is the time to notify the teachers and make sure that the teacher even has an inhaler that can be accessed should the child develop any of these symptoms. You know, regarding, again, asthmatics especially, depending on the severity of the asthma, there are different kinds of inhalers. So some inhalers are taken routinely every day to prevent the attack.
Attacks, right.
Then some other inhalers are taken to relieve the attack. So depending on the severity of your asthma, you might need one or both so that we can be ready for it. Now, some people may not even be aware that they are asthmatic, until a season like this begins. So again, you need to be mindful. Then apart from asthma, there are people who have allergies with their eyes and even their nose. So you go to bed, you wake up and your eyes are itchy, your nose is running. It's because during the day, the dust will settle on the bed. Then you go and lie on the bed. So all through the night, you have been inhaling a lot of dust. So by the time you wake up, all your allergy centers have been triggered. So there's not much you can do because you can't also seal the room,
Yes.
So the trick is when you lay your bed, you put another cloth over the bed. And then when it's time to sleep, you remove that cover cloth and put it somewhere, and then you can sleep. It will reduce the amount of dust, but it won't take it out because remember that there's still going to be dust in the air. If the allergies are that bad, then you need to report to the hospital so that appropriate interventions can be started. Because yes, allergies are part of us, but they don't have to determine our happiness. Because it's Christmas, we have to take some load off
and enjoy. Doc, someone says I should ask you that. Are there any supplements, or is it advisable to take supplements on the go in these times?
Okay, so as the name implies, supplements, so it's supplementary to something. There needs to be something that you are doing that the supplement is coming to add to it. So having said that, supplements would not replace let's say, your main food. So you need to be eating a balanced diet. And then, depending on your age, there are definitely supplements that are recommended for various age groups, and even depending on your sex or even the kind of work you're doing. And that's the mistake a lot of people make. Supplements are not just general for everybody, it depends on a lot of factors. So for instance, you're a woman in your reproductive age, you plan on getting pregnant at some point in the next year, definitely you need to be taking some folic acid already. So folic acid is recommended for women in their reproductive age. Then we have iron, because you're going to have your period every month. It's good that you be on some iron supplement, especially if you're already dealing with some form of anemia.
Right.
A lot of women are borderline, so every month when they have their period, they drop, and then they cannot perform even in their official capacities, so it becomes a bit of a chore. So if you know this, then you get yourself on some iron supplements, and then it helps bring your iron levels up, and your blood level will follow along that line. If you are in your 40s, 50s, as a woman, need to be on some calcium, because once you hit menopause, estrogen levels drop, and it's going to affect your bone, the quality, your bone strength, so your calcium level. So you need to be on some calcium supplements. For the men, it's we tend not to have a lot of these problems, So, but of course, it doesn't mean that we don't need supplements. Some supplements that contain minerals like magnesium is good, especially even in managing your blood pressure.
Right.
It doesn't mean that if you are hypertensive, you just take magnesium supplements and you ignore the medication, because I remember I started by saying that it is supplementary to something. So you still need to be on your medication. And the interesting thing is that during Christmas, a lot of people don't take their regular medication. It's all about let me chill. But
after that,
but remember that January is a very long month. It's a very, very long month. So if you don't put things right in December, and you enter January and the money has finished and the eye has cleared, the blood pressure will start going up even more. So if you haven't controlled it well, then the risk of strokes and heart attacks are higher. So please make sure you are taking your regular medication. If you are hypertensive, if you are diabetic, if you are asthmatic, if you have any form of kidney failure or any of these challenges, please make sure that you are taking your medication as you ought to, and don't indulge in the food and the alcohol especially, because alcohol by itself will increase your blood pressure. So if you are hypertensive and you're not taking your medication and you go and drink a lot, it could end you in the emergency room, and it will not be good news. Diabetics as well need to manage what they are taking in, or make sure that you counter what you are eating by doing exercise. Now, I know how difficult it is to exercise in the Harmattan because you can barely breathe. So if you don't want to struggle with exercise, then, manage what you are taking in a little bit better, so that it doesn't affect you too much. But ultimately, don't be too hard on yourself. It's end of year. It's been a tough year, so let's find a way to relax in spite of all the many challenges that are around us.
Doc, finally, before I let you go, are there any myths or misconceptions about Harmattan, the dry season, that you'd want to address?
Well, I mean, I don't know any specific myths, however, but one of the things that people tend to do is, okay, so there's this thing where they say if I sleep under fan, I get a cold, so people would put off the fan. And if it's an adult, I don't have a problem. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. But when you impose this on the children, you can end up causing them some discomfort, you know, so that whilst dealing with all the many things you've spoken about, then they start developing heat rashes. Because you realize that even though there's a lot of chill in the air, it's also still very, very hot, especially in the early part of the night. It's very, very hot. I mean, you go in the room and then you are sweating. So if you are not having some form of air circulation, it becomes a bit of a challenge. So by all means, I mean, don't turn the fan up too high, but let there be some circulation. Open the windows a bit. Some people also close the windows during the night, and all that would help promote the spread of infection, because now the air is staying in there, and anybody in the room is inhaling the air that already contains the virus that maybe one person is coughing or whatever. So please open the window so that there's some air circulation circulating through the room. It's very important.
Doc, what about air conditions? Is it okay to be sleeping in air conditions in this season?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you set the temperature to. So there's no problem with air conditioning. Air conditioning actually filter the air. I mean, provided you have been servicing it. If you are not servicing it, I don't know what the status is. But air conditionings tend to filter the air, so it sucks out the old air and then brings in new air, and that has been filtered. So air conditioners are fine. There are some particular infections that are more common in air conditioners, but we don't even see that we don't see them often in Ghana, because most people don't use the air conditioning 24/7, so we don't see them. But there are some particular infections that are more common. But generally, air conditions are actually better if you can afford it in these times, because of the filtration mechanisms.
Right, Doc, thank you so much. It's been great, as always, having this conversation with you. So we've been speaking to Dr. Kelvin Owusu, who is a wellness consultant at the Violet Medical Center. We've been talking about the Harmattan season and how to stay safe during this Christmas. Do stay with us. When we come back from this break, there's more conversations on Breakfast Daily.